Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're unpacking that massive US-China geopolitical summit that just wrapped up to see exactly how it shapes our global future. We are looking at a monumental shift here, one that perfectly blends high-stakes diplomacy with cutting-edge tech and ultimately the entire global economy. It's a completely fascinating intersection, and the details coming out of these meetings are honestly nothing short of game-changing. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting the summit's economic goals, how they're expanding the global market, the wild future of the chip trade, what this actually means for ordinary citizens, and finally, how future tech is going to dictate global supply. Let's get into it. Section 1, the summit's economic goals. Now, to really get the geopolitical stakes here, you have to look at who is actually in the room. We aren't just talking about career politicians. We are talking about absolute financial firepower. You've got Elon Musk representing EVs, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA for semiconductors, Kelly Ortberg from Boeing, Brian Sykes from Cargill for agriculture, right alongside the heads of Visa and MasterCard. Having these folks at the table proves this was way less about traditional, closed-door statecraft and much more of a massive, globally scaled economic sales pitch. The strategy really leans on the idea that getting the world's best business minds directly negotiating is literally the fastest way to build connective tissue between two superpowers. You kind of have to wonder, how did two wildly different countries actually find common ground? I mean, the United States operates on this bottoms-up, highly individualist construction. We like to do our own thing. China, on the flip side, is built on a top-down Confucian societal philosophy. It sounds like a recipe for the world's most stressful corporate merger, right? But it's exactly why they might find deep cooperation. Their contrasting structures and resource needs actually allow them to complement each other economically, rather than inherently clash. It's like a giant puzzle, and they each have pieces the other desperately needs. All right, moving on to Section 2, expanding the global market. So the multi-billion-dollar question is, what did China actually agree to buy to expand this global pie? Well, the order book is staggering. China committed to buying 200 Boeing commercial jets, significantly bumping up their import of U.S. soybeans, and expanding purchases of U.S. oil and liquefied natural gas. On top of all that, they're opening their traditionally closed domestic market to U.S. financial and payment services. The underlying strategy here is pretty undeniable. The simplest, surest path to avoiding conflict is deep, bidirectional economic entanglement. When two countries are that mutually dependent on exchanging tangible goods and services, the appetite for conflict just drastically drops. And that brings us to a really defining quote from the summit: "We want a wider door for business." What this means is both administrations are trying hard to pivot away from a zero-sum game. That old idea that for one country to win, the other has to lose. Instead of fighting over a static pool of resources, they're aiming to create a resource-expansive world. A world where both societies can dramatically increase their quality of life, boost productivity, and generate abundance, without taking a single thing away from the other side. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the future of chip trade. Because all of this trade builds up to the most intensely debated tech battleground on the planet right now, and that is semiconductors. And it sparks this massive question that geopolitical and tech experts are completely split on. Should the U.S. sell its absolute latest, state-of-the-art AI chips to China? Does holding back our most advanced tech actually prevent conflict and preserve supremacy? Or does it just force our rivals to develop their own competing, self-sufficient infrastructure even faster? The urgency of this question really hits you when you look at the timeline for the next 18 months. Presently, the U.S. restricts those high-end chips. But fast forward just 6 months, and that massive TSMC semiconductor facility in Arizona is going to be scaling up its printing. Give it 12 months, and China, who is heavily investing to mainland their own production, will be standing up Hawaii fabrication plants. And the climax hits at 18 months. As both superpowers build up their domestic manufacturing, Taiwan's absolute strategic monopoly on the world's most advanced chips significantly diminishes. The global leverage completely shifts. And compounding all of this is the reality of the software itself. Chinese AI models are catching up fast. Analysts are pointing out that they're proving highly capable of fast-following U.S. innovations. And they're functioning really efficiently, even without access to the absolute highest-end hardware. Because these AI models are catching up anyway, a really strong argument made during the summit analysis is that selling the chips allows American companies, like NVIDIA, to maintain market dominance and harvest revenue, rather than starving them and accidentally birthing an unstoppable foreign competitor. Okay, let's bring it home. Section 4, impacts on ordinary citizens. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, look, I don't run an AI lab or an oil rig, I just want cheaper groceries. Why does any of this matter to me? Well, let's walk through that kitchen table ripple effect. Step 1, a broad trade deal gets inked at the summit. Step 2, mutual tariffs, basically taxes on imports, are significantly reduced. Step 3, this directly translates to consumer goods dropping in price by 30 to 40% at your local store. And step 4, surging exports in agriculture and aviation result in increased domestic job security and income growth. When trade barriers drop, everything from the smartphone you buy to the clothes you wear gets significantly cheaper, all while domestic factories hire more workers to meet international demand. And why is this absolutely critical right now? 3%. With domestic inflation uncomfortably hovering over that 3% mark, the cost of living is basically the primary pain point for the average voter. The potential for massive price drops on imported goods thanks to these renewed trade agreements is exactly the kind of economic relief that directly and immediately impacts the citizen's standard of living. It is for sure the ultimate political and economic prize. Finally, Section 5, Future Tech and Supply. Let's look at how the future of artificial intelligence puts even more pressure on this newly negotiated supply chain. We are rapidly shifting from a world where AI only lives in some massive distant cloud server to one where incredibly powerful models run locally, right on your desk. Think about those new MacBooks packed with 48 gigabytes of memory. Specs that used to be strictly reserved for high-end video editors are now becoming standard just to run everyday AI. This fundamental shift means every single professional and consumer is suddenly going to demand enterprise-grade computing power sitting on their physical desk. And what's a lot of hardware actually going to be doing? It'll be running the multisensory AI boom. We are way past just typing a prompt and waiting for text. The new wave of AI apps actually watches your desktop and webcam in real time. They process and upload data every 200 milliseconds to dual models, one evaluating your past context and one acting in the present. This constant real-time analysis demands 1,000 times more compute tokens than simple text-based prompting. Because of this astronomical spike in required computing power, a stable, highly efficient global chip trade isn't just nice to have. It is the absolute baseline necessity to power the next decade of human productivity. The edge and the cloud are going to come together. This was a brilliant insight from the summit analysis, and it reveals that our future isn't just giant server farms isolated out in the desert somewhere. It's a globally connected grid where edge hardware, meaning the actual devices in your hands, like phones and wearables, seamlessly integrates with the cloud. But building that massive hardware footprint requires an unprecedented level of international cooperation and a completely uninterrupted supply chain. Which brings us to the ultimate question we have to leave you with today. As these superpowers deliberately lock their economies together, does total economic entanglement actually guarantee a no-conflict future? Or is this intense shared reliance on finite hardware just going to shift the battle lines directly to the technologies sitting right there in our pockets? It's a question that is going to define our generation. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes on the supply chain.